morning, good morning, good morning. It is April the 27th, and we are looking at a market that has been melting down for the past several weeks, actually. And yesterday was a pretty big down day. The past 2 days have been somewhat brutal. So we're now just trying to figure out what is going to happen after some really interesting earning reports last night from some of the FANG stocks. The market appears that it wants to try to rally, but it just may be an opportunity to sell. So first of all, just want to make a note that past performance is no guarantee of future results. And welcome to Garula. My name is Richard Gordon. This is the Rich Method as we talk about a number of different stocks and tickers. So AbbVie, ABBV, Cleveland Cliffs today, CLF, Rivian, RIVN, Snapchat, SNAP, Snap, the SPY, of course, Upstart, UPST, and we're going to look at the VIX, and then US Steel X. So I chose those because of where they are sitting relative to their moving averages and other indicators. And I'm looking at, which you cannot see, a number of different charts on different time frames, and I'll scroll through those as need be. But let me just go to a different setup here and show you what my thoughts are here. And this will probably be very helpful. So, and I'm using an account here that I set up especially for this particular session or for Garula. And I'm trying to demonstrate how you can take a small account and by increasing your overall account by 10% each day, it will double every 7.2 days. So for example, taking an account that starts with $500, in the course of 4 months, you can turn that, if you are disciplined, into $500,000. Now, there's no guarantee of that, obviously. So discipline is the key, and it's doable. So we're going to try to do that. So first of all, let me just take a look here at the daily chart. And looking at AbbVie, I like AbbVie from a call perspective or a long perspective. And if you see what's been happening with it over the past year, it really made a nice run. And it looks like it has found support here on the 50-day exponential moving average. Now, AbbVie is healthcare, and healthcare sector is typically defensive when the market is going a little crazy, and everyone's sort of looking at healthcare for gains and safety. So we're looking at AbbVie if in fact the market decides it wants to move to the upside. That would be our trade. Cleveland Cliffs. I chose Cleveland Cliffs because it fell out of this channel. And what you have here is you've got the 5-day EMA coming down, and it's about to cross the 50. It hasn't happened yet, but that would be extremely bullish and should result in an acceleration to the downside. So we have a doji yesterday when Cleveland Cliffs opened, it gapped down and it formed this doji. And since we did not get a green candle, which would signal that this is a reversal because it hit the 50-day EMA, it also hit the Atr Trailing Stop, but we got a red candle. So this indicates to us that this is a continuation to the downside. And the current support level I see is 2305 on my 200-day. This white line is a 200-day EMA, exponential moving average. Rivian, I have Rivian in a downward channel, which I showed here. It's from its high of 179.47 down to 30.58. I don't know what's happening, but I see something going on with Rivian now. And the market hasn't opened yet, but it's really showing some interesting behavior. And I'm going to check the news just for a moment and see what we can find out, if there's anything. Issue of short interest. So short interest has risen. Okay, so that could be short covering. There's nothing here that indicates this should be happening. So we'll keep an eye on Rivian, because ideally, what I would like to do is to buy Rivian to the downside, getting rejected off of the 5-day EMA, which is at 33.66. So it looks like Rivian is climbing in the pre-market, and we have an Atr trailing stop here at 31.79. That could be where the resistance happens. If it breaks through that, then we're going to be looking to the 1 hour, where we have it at 32.33. But the idea would be to trade Rivian to the downside. Snap is another. Snap, if you're familiar with something called the strat, then what you have is an inside candle. In other words, the high is lower than the previous month's high, and the low is higher than the previous month's low. So Snap had an inside bar for the month, and it is approaching a trigger where we would look to buy to the downside. There's also a gap to fill, and the target would be 24.32. Looking at SPY, I have some notes on my chart here. So SPY, we've got the 5 crossing the 50 to the downside, and I'll show you that on the weekly chart. Here, that is bullish, and it should be should cause some acceleration to the downside. But again, we've had this move here for the past 4 weeks to the downside, so there could be, this is the current week here, SPY could try to move to the upside, but it doesn't mean that that's going to last for the rest of the week. So we're going to be watching it today. This was a really strong move yesterday to the downside. I have a note here to buy puts below 433. I'm going to change that to 427 because that's where the 5-day EMA is. So 427.79. There are lots of things we could cover, but we won't be able to do that before the market opens. So please join us on Sundays at 1:00 p.m. Eastern. Upstart is another that I've chosen because, again, it is in this downtrend, which has been marked, and it goes all the way back to this high of 401. So we've got Upstart moving down, and ideally, we like to buy it getting rejected here off of the 5-day EMA at $78. Don't know if it will get there. But looking at the VIX hit a high on Tuesday of 31.60. And of course, it broke through this trailing stop. On the 30-minute chart, there's an Atr trailing stop right here. But we're using this high as well because this was resistance, so we're expecting this to be support. And if we look at a faster time frame, let's go to 30 minutes. We can see that the VIX is trading above this previous high on Thursday. Well, not Thursday, on Tuesday. And this may very well hold because it's above the 5-day EMA. So we're expecting the VIX to climb here. And finally, X. Looking at X, we're looking to trade X to the downside. We've got the 5-day coming down across the 50, so we would expect to try to buy a put on X if it tries to move to the upside. Looks like it is not going to. So I'm going to get to my trading screen and look at making some decisions here at the open. All right, so we've got Rivian, which was of great interest, and I'm just going to jump into a Rivian put. And what do we got here? So, because I'm wanting to trade Rivian to the downside, and I'm seeing on the 30-minute chart here some indication that we're going to actually be getting rejected. And I like Rivian because it typically moves quite a bit when it does move. And right now looks like I can get in for a decent price. All right, so I'm in a Rivian put off the, again, off the open. Now, generally you want to wait if you are not certain about direction until you have an opening high marked and an opening low. But I've already decided based on what I see on my charts that I'm going to trade in this direction. And I'm looking at the VIX, and as long as the VIX is somewhat elevated, but if Rivian moves against me, I'm going to exit this pretty quickly. So I'm not going to stay in if it moves to the upside, because I can always get back in. So let's mark this opening high and opening low for Rivian. And let's look at AbbVie. All right, so AbbVie is one that I would like to trade to the upside. And I'm only going to be in one trade at a time, unless I see something that's really compelling. And I do like X to the downside. I'm going to take a look here really quickly and look at my charts. And again, what I like about X to the downside is you've got this 5-day coming down on top of the 50, and it's about to cross. So this could be a nice downside move, even though it started to the upside. I would expect it to move downward. And I'm going to consider X, but I'm going to wait and use the method that we've talked about, the opening high and opening low. So I may miss this because, again, I'm fully expecting X to move to the downside, regardless of what happens with the market today, because of the way the chart looks on the daily. That 5-day cross in the 50 is significant and can be significant. So at some point, we're going to be looking for that move. Cleveland Cliffs, same thing, looking for a downside move. Five-day cross in the 50. All right, so Rivian hasn't necessarily turned against me, but it is moving up. Not really sure what the news is. Looking at hitting the Atr Trailing Stop on the 1 hour, and that is about 32.32. And I'm going to sit in this for a minute. I may actually see if I can find another position, because I really want to buy it off that 5-day EMA, which is at 33.10. So I'm pretty confident to comfortable in my decision to the downside. Snap also is one that I would look to trade to the downside. And I'm not surprised by these initial moves up at all. And we like SPY, so let's trade SPY today. That way we can do that as a group looking at the VIX. So looking at the VIX currently, so the VIX is currently moving to the downside. And we're looking at SPY. So we're going to mark the opening high and opening low for SPY with the VIX falling. And let's just kind of see where it might fall to. All right, so the VIX could fall to 29, 30, thereabouts. It's below the 5-day EMA on the 30-minute chart, so it's fallen through support. So going back then, looking at SPY, I'm going to offset my Rivian trade with a trade on SPY to the upside. And I'm going to buy the April 29th. To get myself a little bit of time. And I'm going to look for an entry. So based on what's happening with the VIX, it looks like the VIX may be finding a bottom here. So we're going to just wait. And these are the two charts that we're going to watch, SPY and VIX, to look for an opportunity to trade SPY. So if I'm using the VWAP, so SPY looks to be bullish. There's no reason to rush the trade. But I'm watching the VIX, and it looks like the VIX is now falling. All the volume is occurring here on SPY, so it's above the volume point of control. We have good volume coming in. Just kind of looking at the volatility. All right, so the VIX is falling still. But we do want to use the opening high and the opening low. The thing about SPY, you can trade it essentially every day. And it has every other day expiration. So you can get really good value on the price of the options that you're buying. And the SPY moves $7.81 on average. So if, depending on what you buy, you can actually make decent money. So if I'm looking at the SPY on the 5-day EMA, 424.50 is where the 5-day EMA is. So that would be my target for the day if I trade a SPY to the upside. But I'm also looking at the VIX, and I see this hammer, and we have like less than a minute. So if a hammer forms here on the VIX, then I'm not expecting the SPY to continue to climb. I would expect the VIX to reverse and then to begin moving to the upside. So if the VIX closes anywhere above where it is, this wick is not long enough for a hammer. You really want to see a longer wick. But this indicates there's going to be a reversal. But we do have SPY, which is moving to the upside or trying to. But we have an opening high now for SPY. And the point of control has moved up. So I'm going to offset my Rivian put, I'm going to buy the SPY as a hedge, but I want to get the best price that I can. And the volume is declining here, so not sure if that's a good sign. So we had good volume on the open for SPY, but then the volume is declining on the next candle, even though the candle size is pretty much the same. So that doesn't signal there's any real strength. And looking at the VIX, we don't have a clear indication of what it's going to do yet, but we do know the SPY is struggling with the opening high. So right now the SPY is bullish based on the fact that it's above the VWAP, this purple line, and it's also above the point of control. So it is in the high value area, which is where you want it to be for a trade to the upside. And it looks like it wants to move to the upside. I'm watching as it does. And the VIX looks like it's falling. So I'm going to take that upside trade on SPY. All right, so now in a SPY trade to the upside and a Rivian trade to the downside. The SPY is my hedge against my Rivian puts. So watching the VIX, it looks like it's going to continue falling. And let's look at a 30-minute chart. So we've got the VIX falling here to 30.31. And let's see what we're going to do with the SPY. All right, so SPY looks like we have 420.64 as a possible target. That's an algorithm resistance line that's drawn based on correlating the monthly candles. So VIX is falling pretty quickly. SPY is climbing. So this is the first area that we're going to try to monitor for resistance. And let's go here to my 5-minute chart. It's going to come into view soon. So the SPY is compensating, even though I'm down on my Rivian put, my SPY has gained more and is providing some compensation for that. So I'm going to go to a different chart here so we can monitor this a little bit better. I want to use the Atr Trailing Stop and some other tools. So I'm in SPY and Rivian. All right, so Rivian has looked like it's going to give us a reversal, which is good because let's see, did it hit the 5-day EMA? All right, the 5-day EMA is at 33.14, and the high for Rivian today was 32.43. So it didn't hit it, but it still got close enough. So hopefully that's enough for the resistance to kick in. SPY is still climbing, so we're going to break through here. And again, we're looking at a target on SPY of 425.49 because that's where the 5-day EMA is. What we're going to do is take a look at this. And if indeed it actually gets to a place where we are able to take profit, then we will do that. And I'm going to go to a 2-minute chart. And I'm going to add actually, I'm not going to use the VWAP. I'm going to actually use the Atr Trailing Stops and the EMAs. All right, so now what we're expecting is we're expecting for SPY to find support here at 420. If not, then this is going to be resistance. So we don't want the SPY to close below here. If it does, it may be done for the day, and that's not what we want. Well, not done for the day, but done for this trade. So it looks like our Rivian trade is moving in our direction. SPY is struggling with that algorithmic support level or resistance. So what I'm seeing here on my 30-minute chart is there's an Atr trailing stop there as well. So that's pretty strong resistance. So I'm actually going to take my profit, which is at 45% right now. So I'm out of my SPY trade. Now it could very easily break through, and that's great. But for the moment, I just took a profit of 45%. And I was in this trade for a total of, oh, I don't know, see how many candles. So I got in here. So a little bit more than maybe 5 minutes. And I did get out. I just basically cut my risk. So I'm going to watch here. And what I want to see the SPY come back and find support here on this purple line, which is an algorithmic support and resistance level that I've drawn on my chart. In the meantime, I'm going to monitor my Rivian trade. And looking at Rivian, going to a 1-hour chart. So Rivian is hitting this Atr trailing stop. So we can use the opening high as a level of resistance. All right, so SPY is still moving up, which is a good trade. And looking at the 1-hour chart, there's strong resistance here at 422.29. So what we would expect is the SPY to hit 422.29 and then to reverse and come back and test this support level. This is on the 1-hour. All right, so we're going to keep an eye on this. And as far as the VIX is still falling. The VIX looks like it could find support here on the 50-day EMA on a 30-minute chart. Also, there's an ATR here because it for support. So this hasn't closed. So the VIX could climb above this ATR trailing stop, and then that would be support. We have about 9 minutes before that happens. So we're just going to wait and decide what we're going to do in the next few minutes. And we're going to look at SPY for another entry, if possible. Now, the thing about SPY, if we enter SPY here, for example, if we can get above, if we can get support here on this level, then I'm expecting SPY to then take a bit of a break and then start to make a move back to the upside. And while there is this ATR trailing stop on the 1-hour, I would anticipate, well, this is really strong resistance. So this is, whenever you have 2 or more levels of resistance coming together, that can be somewhat of a problem. So what we see here, for example, is we've got the 50-day EMA and this ATR trailing stop coming together here on the 1 hour. So SPY could probably hit that level before it begins to decline. But when it declines here, then we look for it to come back. And of course, that would be an opportunity to make an entry again to the upside if in fact this level holds, because the next time it gets here, we would expect it should have enough momentum from taking this break to push through to the upside. So we're going to watch this carefully and see if in fact it does what we want it to do. So any questions so far about any of the things we've covered in terms of using the VIX and using the SPY? Because they move in opposite directions. So if the VIX is moving down, the SPY is moving up and vice versa. And if you see on the VIX a signal, for example, that it is possibly going to reverse, then you may be a bit cautious on any SPY trades to the upside. So if you see weakness in SPY to the upside, that would be an indication that, okay, maybe I should just take my profit and look for another entry. And you can trade this all the way up. No reason why you can't buy it several times. But the idea is to protect your capital. That's always our objective. And again, the idea here is to make a 10% gain on your total account each day. So my SPY trade so far has been a gain of 45%. So I'm heading towards that number. I am down on my Rivian by 30%. So I have a net in my two trades of 10%. So I've got to now make some gains and trades to the upside to reach my target. All right, so SPY is behaving as expected. It's come back. It's testing this support level. The VIX is above the Atr Trailing Stop. We can see we marked it here. And just for a view, we'll go to a 30-minute chart so you can actually see it. So here is above, bounced off the 50, which we were anticipating. So going back to the SPY, we're going to look for and see if there's another opportunity to enter another SPY trade to the upside. So we've got the SPY coming back. We're expecting it to find support. We'd like for it to find support here. If not, then here. And if not here, then here. But the problem is if it falls below the 5-day EMA, that is not necessarily going to be a good sign. So I'm looking at the VIX, and the VIX is struggling with this Atr Trailing Stop because it was support, now it's resistance. So this may signal another move by SPY to the upside. So looking at SPY. All right, so that support level is not holding. And that's because the VIX is, again, climbing. So we're going to be patient here. So my Rivian should be falling as well. All right, so this was the resistance level we identified for Rivian. Spinning top, spinning top, spinning top. That signals reversal. So I'm going to stay in this Rivian trade. Looks like Rivian may have hit the 5-day EMA, which is what we really wanted. So we got in a bit early. I'm just going to get rid of this for a moment. So it didn't actually hit it, but it got very close. It got close enough. And we're expecting it to get rejected here and then to decline. So I'm staying in Rivian. I have time. The SPY trade is a trade that has today's expiration. So I'm looking to now make another SPY trade, another call. To the upside, but the VIX is still climbing. I'm looking at my second chart. So I'm a little hesitant because the VIX is climbing. The SPY seems to be holding, but I don't have any real indication yet that it's going to. And I'm watching this algorithmic support and resistance level is something that I drew on my chart by correlating 2 monthly candle wicks, 2 or more. My theory is this is where machines typically make decisions to buy or sell based on past activity. And of course, this says this was the peak, either the low for the month or the high for the month over the history of SPY. And I was able to correlate either 2 lows, 2 highs, or a low and a high, and come up with this line. And this can go all the way back to the beginning of when SPY was trading. So as you can see, it does have some significance, but you're not going to find this plotted on your screen by any of your platforms. This is something that you have to do yourself. But it helps with decisions, because now if this 5-day EMA moves up here, then that would indicate strong support, and that would certainly tell me that I may want to continue an upside trade on SPY. But I'm watching here, and there's this sort of battle taking place at this price level of 420.64. So we're just going to be a little patient because the VIX is still climbing. I'm expecting the VIX to hit 30.63 and then to get rejected on the 5-day. If it doesn't, then the next level where it could get rejected is at 30.99. There's a lot of resistance for the VIX right now, so I'm looking to trade SPY to the upside. And I'm going to take my trade after I get another candle. So this is a doji spinning top. This support level seems to be holding, but I want to see another candle. I want to see this candle close. We had that experience yesterday where we didn't wait for the candle to close, and it would have been the right decision because we were trading SPY to the upside, got out early based on the fact that the candle was below a resistance level, but it closed above and held and then took off to the upside.
I think that was 2 days ago, Richard.
Oh, okay, all right. So we have about 40 seconds left for this candle to close. And when it does, we'll use the next candle to help us determine what to do. So it looks like this, again, this is going to hold here. And if we get the next candle that opens and it's green, then we would look to enter to the upside. $15 minutes. All right. Sorry, 15 seconds, 5 seconds, so about just a bit in this. All right, so here we go. We're going to take an upside trade. On SPY. All right, so I'm in. And I made that decision based on the fact that this support level here is holding. And when this candle closed, it's a spinning top doji, but it signals that a reversal could be coming or is happening. And also you've got the 5-day EMA coming up, approaching this algorithmic support level. So what I said earlier, when you have two or more indicators that overlap, that's either strong support or resistance. All right, so now we're in this SPY trade. I'm going to stay in this trade now all the way up to about 425. I'm anticipating that when it gets to that Atr trailing stop on the 1 hour that we identified earlier here, that it's going to have enough strength based on the fact that it came back, it tested the support level to push through. It's possible that when it does push through, that it could then face some resistance and decline. However, there appears to be some strength in this move. So let's go back to.
That was great timing, Richard.
Yeah, thank you, David. Let's go back to a chart that shows what we have in terms of volume, not only based on the candle, but based on price. So looking at SPY, we saw this earlier. I don't like what I'm seeing here. So now what we're getting is we've got a hammer on the VIX. So SPY fell through here, which is, let me go back to my earlier chart. So this trade looks like it may not work. All right, so we're going to wait for a candle close here on the SPY. But so looking at the VIX broke through the 5-day EMA. So we're looking at this here as the next level of resistance, 30.99. All right, so remember I have my Rivian trade. So this is Rivian, my put. So it is compensating for my decline in SPY. SPY is my hedge. So even though I'm losing on my SPY trade, my Rivian trade is positive. So I'm still positive for the day. So I'm going to watch this for a second, because now we've got the VIX, which is here, and this is a key level of resistance. So I'm expecting the VIX to get rejected here and my SPY to hold. So the SPY is about to hit the 200-day here, and I'm expecting it to start moving back to the upside. So we'll just keep an eye and we'll watch.
Richard, there was a news about pending home sales being 1.2 versus 1.0 estimate. I think that came out at 7 a.m. your time. I think that's what caused a little dip in the SPY.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
okay.
not huge. That's not huge news.
All right, so looks like the VIX could push through here. And going back to SPY. Yeah, so I'm not going to be overly concerned, because I have a couple of different places for support. I've got the 200-day right here. I've got the 20-day, the 50-day, and the opening high. We're just going to keep an eye on this for a minute and see if it can't find some support. Rivian is performing the way I expected it to. This was the opening high for Rivian. So I'm going to stay in my Rivian put. and SPY and VIX. If VIX pushes through here, then that's going to be a concern. So let me just mark the opening low for the VIX, which is all the way down here. All right, so VIX is pushing through, and I'm going to exit my SPY trade. See if I can find a decent exit. If I can't get above the 5-day EMA, and this doesn't hold, doesn't look like it will, well, you know what? I think what would work for me is I can actually stay in this because I have the offset here with Rivian. So looking at Rivian, we've got the spinning top, which indicates reversal. And on the 1-hour chart, it got rejected at the Atr Trailing Stop here, which was at the opening high. So again, those two levels of resistance aligned. And on the 4-hour, okay, so it's back inside of the trend line. So good. So the Rivian trade, even though I had to wait a little bit, that was a good trade. So the SPY is really what I need to be concerned about. And it looks like we're going to get some support here, looking at the VIX. All right, so that Atr trailing stop on the VIX is holding on the 5-minute. So it looks like the VIX is getting rejected here at this level. And I'm getting support on the SPY. So what I am going to do, I'm going to actually add to my SPY trade. So what I'm doing now, I'm actually averaging down, which is an interesting concept and one that I don't necessarily recommend, but I use it on occasions based on the fact that I feel confident about a particular move. So looking at the fact that the VIX is falling, it's getting rejected here, which would be expected. And then the SPY found support here. I was able to cut my cost significantly, given what I initially paid. Now, the risk here is if this does not work, then I'm simply going to lose more money. So that's why I don't necessarily recommend it. So I'm looking at support here. And I'm just going to watch this SPY trade. So the VIX is climbing again. And we're going to have looks like a weekday, which was anticipated. So this is a key level. You've got the 20-day, the 50-day, and the opening high all here as support. So this is pretty strong. Then you've got the Atr trailing stop here. So there's a lot of support for the SPY right here. And I'm counting on this holding and the SPY eventually moving back to the upside based on this strength and support. Because again, I said when you have at least two levels of support or resistance that overlaps, then that's generally very strong. And here you've got several places where the SPY could hold up. Now, if the SPY falls below its opening high and certainly below the Atr trailing stop, then that's a challenge, because the 5-day EMA is generally very strong. And I use that as a key indicator of support and resistance. So even though the VIX is climbing, and appears to have found support, I'm looking at this support for SPY here, and I'm looking for it to hold. If it doesn't hold, then I'm going to be out of this trade. I want to see the candle close. All right, so the VIX is hitting resistance here at the opening high. So we'll see if that works out. And it looks like the SPY is not going to hold. So I'm out of that trade. However, I do have my Rivian puts, so that's where I'm going to focus now. We've got some indication that the market is still going to be weak, still going to be moving down. And I'm looking at taking a SPY trade to the downside. Going to keep my eye on this. Our signal of a reversal was here and here. These are spinning tops. This was a doji. So this signal continuation rather than reversal. So the reality of it is, it would have made sense to exit as soon as it crossed below this support level. So let's take a look on a larger time frame and see what's happening here. All right, so it looks like we're going to find some support at the bottom. That 5-day EMA is just so strong. All right, so SPY may find support. And look at this long candle. So trading from here, if we had gotten into, well, I know this must be a misprint. This can't be correct because I didn't see this pop up to this level. But if you traded SPY to the downside here, once it fell below this support level at 420, then that would be a nice move to the downside. And it looks like it's going to continue. So now that we are below the opening low, I'm in a SPY put. All right, so we traded SPY to the upside, tried to trade it to the upside again based on the support level, didn't wait long enough to give it a chance to tell us what it was going to do. And now it's fallen through the opening low. Then the idea is to take it to the downside. So looking at the VIX. The VIX is still climbing. And let's go to a 30-minute chart. And a 1 hour. So we're looking for resistance. All right, so it looks like the resistance for VIX is all the way up here. And this is an Atr trailing stop on the weekly chart. So if we go to the weekly, we see it here. So this is where we'll find resistance, the next level of resistance for the VIX. That's quite a ways up. Okay, so I gave up quite a bit of my profit on that one trade, SPY trade to the upside, but I didn't stay in it. And that's the key, is to use your charts, but make the decision to get out when it's apparent that it's not working. And that was when it crossed below all of the support. So now we've got the SPY moving to the downside. And my downside put is currently up about 15%. So my overall account for the day is barely up a little. It's up 2%. So got quite a ways to go to try and hit that 10% mark. But that is the target for the day. And every day is, again, to try and get a gain of 10% in your account each day and to not lose. So now I'm up 4% overall in my total account for the day. And looks like the Rivian trade is working. Got this 5-day EMA coming down, crossing the 20. Rivian has fallen through its opening low. Ideally, it would have been nice to get in up here. So it would have been nice to wait until Rivian got close to this 5-day EMA, which, again, when I'm trading to the downside, what I want to see is I want to see stocks that are getting rejected off resistance. And if I'm trading to the upside, I want to see stocks that are bouncing off of support. So I was looking for a downside trade in each of these stocks on my buy list. For example, Cleveland Cliffs was one. The idea was to buy it off of the rejection here. And this was at 28.03. It hit a high of 27.98, and then it started to decline. So this 5-day EMA, and what you'll see here is this 5-day EMA is going to come down and cross to 50, and that's going to mean an acceleration to the downside. Snap, we had already identified Snap, and if we go to our 5-minute chart, what we'll see is Snap fell through the inside month, which would have been our target, or we could have used this target. And even though it's showing a hammer here, I don't think that's going to hold. And the idea is take Snap all the way down to 24.32. Now there's a gap to be filled at 26.49. So profit taking there would be perfectly okay, particularly given the volatility of the market. And we're seeing how that volatility plays out. Upstart was another trade to the downside. Upstart hit the 5-day EMA and it hit the trend line. So this would have been the ideal trade today. When it climbed and it hit the 5-day EMA, of course, to have taken this if we use the opening high and the opening low, could have taken it here, 74.54, which would have been fine. Because Upstart moves $7 a day. So it still has downside. So we have about 10 minutes. And same thing for X again. So X and Cleveland Cliffs. X didn't quite get to its 5-day EMA, but it did hit the 50. And then it started its move to the downside. So any questions so far? AbbVie was my choice to the upside. I still think this is a really good trade. I like the fact that it's bouncing off the 50. It's climbing above the 5-day EMA, and it moves on average $5.17 a day. And it doesn't have any real resistance until about 172.19, which would be the target for AbbVie. I'm looking at it on a day, on a 5-minute chart. That would have been the opening high, and the opening low would have been down here. So the entry would have been right around here somewhere to the upside on AbbVie. So any questions, any thoughts on what we've covered?
I do, Richard.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to make sure that I'm following you. So you went to the daily chart and you looked at where the daily candles were sitting, say for Upstart, right?
Yes.
And then you said, okay, I'm selecting this asset to trade based on this location to the 5-day EMA.
So yeah, so
Okay.
I believe that the 5-day EMA is a very strong area of support or resistance. It's a pretty tight EMA. So you use the 8, and you can use the 8, you can use whatever you want, the 20, but the idea is to, if you're going to buy off the downside, to buy off rejection at whatever EMA you're using. It can be the 50, it can be the 20, it can be the 5, it can be the 8. So it doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of preference. And if you're going to buy to the upside, you want to buy off support. So if in fact Upstart was trading above the 5-day EMA and the market was expected to be bullish today, I would want to buy it bouncing off of this 5-day EMA. So what I do is I go through my watch list, like here, and I will scroll through and I will look for opportunities. So for example, take Alcoa. I mean, you can clearly see what's happened with Alcoa. It hit the 5-day EMA, it got rejected, it's declining, and there's support here. Apple. I will be looking at this 5-day EMA. If Apple had a great earnings report, and if it opened above the 5-day, I would look for it to find support on the 5-day and then continue moving up. Or if it just climbed enough and it hit the 5-day on the open and started to move down, I'd buy it to the downside. But I look at my charts every day and I'm looking for things that are signaling that they could be moving up or down. So for example, Airbnb. I saw Airbnb yesterday. I'm expecting the travel sector to decline. And given what happened here, you see Airbnb getting rejected at the 5-day EMA. My theory was if Airbnb climbs to the 5-day EMA today, then I'm going to buy it to the downside, but wait for the right entry. You know, if it continues moving down, you could buy it, but then there's a risk that, you know, it could find some support and come back and then try to find this 5-day EMA. But if you look at it here, it gets rejected. Here it hits it and it gets rejected. It gaps open. it finds support, it comes back, it hits it, it finds support, comes back, hits it, it finds support. So again, this is how I use the daily chart to identify opportunities. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
So looking at Arthur Daniels Midland, for example. So not just the 5-day, but I use the Atr Trailing Stops, the 20-day, the 50-day, the 200, the purple lines I draw on my chart. I'm looking for any support or resistance I can find. And if I'm trading or looking to trade to the upside, I'm wanting to make sure that there is no resistance being faced, at least before I hit my target. Same thing to the downside. I want to make sure that I'm not looking at any support until I hit my target. So that's just key for me. So for example, if the market, if I thought travel was going to be green today and I was trading to the upside, I would not choose Alaska because I'm seeing this resistance here. So I would find something that is either above support, well, not either, but something that is above support versus below support if I'm trading to the upside. Now, if I'm trading to the downside, I would most likely try to find something and identify like the resistance. And I say, okay, I'm going to buy puts on Alaska Airline when it climbs to the support level. So I wouldn't look at Alaska today. I would have looked at Alaska Airline, for example, if it had climbed yesterday and hit the 5-day EMA, because I would then expect it to open to try to test that again into the climb. For this reason, I don't trade the same stocks every day. I go through my list every day, and I'm trying to find opportunities. And once I do that, I narrow my watch list, and I try to decide, or I try to choose stocks I'm going to trade to the upside and stocks I'm going to trade to the downside. So that way, whatever the market decides it wants to do, I have choices. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, that's great. Because I was talking about, setting up the swing type of trading plan, but now the swing trading plan isn't really ideal with the way the market is from what I can see with my level of experience. So this is very helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, so for example, I'm looking at, this is a chart for Bank of America. So I wouldn't necessarily trade Bank of America today, but I see that Bank of America is moving to the upside, it appears. And if it continued, and say Bank of America closed up here today, then I would be looking to buy Bank of America to the downside tomorrow based on the fact that it could hit this 5-day EMA, get rejected, and move to the downside. Today, I would trade Bank of America to the upside, given the fact that it's green, with the understanding that this is the most I can get out of it at 37.21, which is where the 5-day EMA is. There are some stocks that, like for example, this is Bloom Energy. There's no support at all down here. You'd have to find it. But again, you've got Bloom Energy hitting the 5-day and getting rejected. So, I mean, that to me is that's how I actually identify my trades. So for Bloom Energy, I would want to try to identify where is support and resistance. So I would go to the monthly candles. It hasn't been trading very long. And I would look, this is where the current price is here at the bottom of this body on the red candle. That's the current price. So I would look below the current price for support. And what I see is I can take these two wicks that I'm going to point out here in just a moment. Let me just mark this. So I can take this, the wick on this candle. I can take the wick on this candle. I can take the wick on this candle and correlate them. So every time the stock hit this price, it either got rejected or it bounced on a monthly basis. So now what we've got is the prices here. So now if I go to my daily chart, I'm saying to myself, this is where the support level is for Bloom Energy. So if I bought a put here, I'll be watching very carefully to see how it handled this 1844. And you know, we saw on, I'm up 8% on my trade. So we saw on the VIX, I think we're looking at the VIX, how that worked. Was it a SPY? It was SPY actually. So we saw on SPY how those indicators work when you draw them yourself on using the monthly candle. So for example, going back to the chart here on SPY, this is one that I drew using that same principle, and you see how it works. So I use, again, I want to know where the support is, where the resistance is, so that when I make my entry, make my decision, I'm making it based on some knowledge, not just a guess. I'm currently at 9.9% in my total account gain for the day. So let me look here. I don't want to give that up. I'm going to mark this 414.51 as 414.51 as Atr Trailing Stop, and watch there. ATR, this is on the 30-minute. All right, so looking at this is a key support level. Now going back to the 5-minute chart here, I'm watching because I'm trying to, again, gain 10% in my account for the day. And you see, we've only been trading for an hour, and I'm almost there. So I'm going to make sure I protect myself. But if my charts give me some strong indication that there's further movement to the downside on Rivian and SPY, then I'm going to stay in and try and get as much as I can. But at some point, that 10% of my total account value becomes my stop. And if it reverses against me and I see I'm at risk of falling below 10%, I'm just going to take my exits and get out and do something else with my time for the rest of the day. So looking at Rivian. So Rivian is signaling reversal. So you've got this inverted hammer here, inverted hammer here and here. So don't know when it's coming. You got a hammer here, but it's telling me that it's going to turn around. And let's just take a look and see what is happening. So 30.36 as an ATR trailing stop. On the 30-minute. And you're not always going to get 10%. Your gains aren't going to always be 10%. They could be more, they could be less. But the one thing you don't want is you want to try and guard against a loss. And just like that, my 8% is now down to less than 1%. So looking at the VIX, I have a shooting star, which tells me that the VIX is going to now reverse. And I have to make some decisions. So now my account is negative, just that quickly. So I'm looking at Rivian. I think Rivian still has some. So Rivian did have a little reversal. We see it here. Hammer, spinning top, I'm sorry, upside inverted hammer, signaling reversal. So it did reverse. We got this green candle. And now we're just kind of seeing if this 20-day EMA is going to hold as resistance. And looking at the VIX, what I need is for this 5-day EMA to hold, because my account value is now down 1%. So I don't want to give back. I don't want to lose certainly more than 2 or 3% of my total account value for the day. And I want to gain at least 10. And if I do that, then I can double my account. So looking at the SPY, we see this hammer here. So that again signals reversal. But we got the 5-day EMA and the SPY is below the opening low. The VIX is about to hit this support level. And it actually looks like it's not going to hold. All right, so looking at Rivian. So I'm going to see if I can't get my gain back, but now my account is down 5%, just like that. So swing from 8 to 5. So it's very volatile. So the thing is, what's really important for me, and I think so Rivian is moving in the right direction. So I'm happy about that. What's really important about trading is, you know, we oftentimes want to try to make the most money that we can on every single trade. And that's a recipe for disaster. If you just get small gains, then compounding will take care of the rest. You know, you don't have to make 100% on every trade. There are some trades where you're going to make 100%. And we tend to think that that's possible all the time. And it's just not. So I hope that's been helpful. Just like that, though, my account is down. But looks like I'm going to be okay with the Rivian put and the SPY put. I just have to wait and look for an exit. The VIX seems to be holding here. And looking at a 30-minute chart.
Okay,
All
Richard,
right, so we
I
have a
gotta
lot
go.
of support.
Thank you very much.
All right, okay. Well, it is 10:38. And remember, past performance is no indication of future results. I hope you guys have a prosperous trading day. And we will see you tomorrow. And I'll give you an update on the results of my trades tomorrow morning.